Hello, and welcome to the most mysterious episode of the Dohyo to date. Today we are solving the mystery of the missing Ozeki Yusho. Stop throw!
Roll the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dohyo here on Mr. J-Wag's channel. Today we are exploring the mystery of the missing Ozeki Yusho. Now, a fun fact that has been sort of shooting its way around the sumo Twitterverse recently has been the fact that no Ozeki has won a Yusho since 2017, since Kiseno Sato was on the end of his Yokozuna run. And we haven't had an Ozeki who just stayed at it, retired at Ozeki, win a Yusho since Goeido back in 2016. So, what's been going on that Ozeki can't seem to close the deal? First, Sumo Shoutouts. Our first shout-out goes to multimedia international sumo superstar John Gunning. Not only is this man a columnist for the Japan Times and an on-camera personality for NHK, but he also sometimes takes time to check out YouTubers and podcasters and give us helpful feedback on what we do, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, John Gunning, for that. Your recent article on Ozeki was one of the inspirations for this episode, and in fact, you've been an inspiration for the whole show, so thank you very much. My second sumo shout-out comes from the sumo subreddit. For this episode, I was doing something analogous to the thing I was doing for the Yokozuna Kyujo episode, and I was compiling all these stats, and then I found on the sumo subreddit that someone had already compiled all the data for Ozeki and Yokozuna, and I very nicely asked them if I could use their info, and they said yes. So, Reddit user 2byzero, I'll be using some of your graphs, and thank you so very much for constantly updating these Kyujo stats. It's very helpful. Sumo shout-out! So as I mentioned, John Gunning recently wrote an article sort of lamenting the fact that Ozeki doesn't seem to be the Great Barrier that it used to be. Ozeki, of course, being literally translated into English as Great Barrier. He points out that back in 2006, we had the end of a 7-year run where Tochiazuma, Kaio, and Chio Taikai, two of whom I have previously discussed on the channel, had won 11 Yusho between them in 7 years. And since then, all the Ozekis combine to win 11 Yusho. So, what has happened since then? Why are these Ozeki somehow less Ozeki than the others? Well, I have some thoughts. My first thought is this: these Ozeki are winning championships, they are just not winning them at Ozeki. Every single one of the Ozeki he's been talking about, with the exception of Takakeisho, has won at least one championship. It's just they have not managed to win them while at the rank of Ozeki. Now, the end of the sort of 7-year reign of dominance for these big three Ozeki we mentioned before was January 2006, where Tochiazuma claimed a championship. Now, I wonder what may have possibly happened in January 2006 that might have possibly been changing the course of sumo history. Oh, that's right, it was Hakuho's Ozeki run. He took a 13-2 in that tournament, he took a 13-2 in the next tournament, made Ozeki by May, and then won his first Yusho. So, the cutting off point John Gunning has given us for the end of the greatness of the Ozeki seems to coincide exactly with Hakuho becoming an Ozeki and winning his first of 44 championships. Now, we have discussed before, Hakuho creates by himself an economic recession of wins. Sumo is perfectly binary. You either get a win or a loss. And Hakuho wins so much, he has sucked so many wins from other people. People aren't winning championships anymore at Ozeki like they were before because his dominance has been so all-encompassing. Alright, mini celebrate Hakuho on that one.
Celebrate Hakuho.
And the third reason I would say that the Ozeki haven't really been winning is that the Ozeki really haven't been there. Now, traditionally, Ozeki finish tournaments from an 80 to 90% completion rate, and that just has not been the case with any of the recent Ozeki. Now, I'm not counting any of the very recent Ozeki. Asanoyama's only had 2 basho at Ozeki, and Shodai was just promoted, so those two, not counting those yet. Alright, now I don't think we understand like how historically bad recent Ozeki attendance has been. Check out this graph by 2byzero. But before you do, let me warn you, 2byzero must be Australian because the time on this graph goes from right to left, what we call the Coriolis effect. So as you can see on this graph, the black line is Yokozuna plus Ozeki completion percentage. The blue dots are just Ozeki and the gray dots are just Yokozuna. Now you can see Yokozuna attendance goes up and down and all over the place. This makes sense. Yokozuna can take tournaments off and not be demoted, unlike Ozeki. So as we said before, the average/median Ozeki attendance is somewhere between 80 to 90%. You'll see on this graph sometimes it dips down a bit to like the 70% region, but it never gets much below that until very recently. So what is up with the current Ozeki? But let's go back to Takakeisho. He's missed 3 out of 7. Tochinoshin missed 3 out of 7. Takayasu has missed 6 out of 15. Terunofuji missed 2 out of 5. And remember, this is just from the beginning of 2017. And crazily enough, the Ozeki champion of sort of longevity since 2017 has been Goeido, only going Kyujo 6 out of 19 times. And if we push this all the way back to 2017, we have 2 extra Ozeki we haven't talked about yet. Kota Shogiku, who of course immediately lost the rank and has been working his way downwards through the Banzuke. And Kisano Sato, who at the beginning of 2017 immediately was promoted to Yokozuna, finally! And then went Kyujo for 8 straight tournaments, which sort of tanked everyone's stats, along with the rest of these Ozeki. Now, as I said, Yokozuna had missed tournaments at a much higher rate than Ozeki. In fact, we had an entire year, 1992, where no tournaments had any Yokozuna finishing at all. Weird. But since 1958, no Ozeki tournaments have only happened 3 times. Once in 1959, and there was only 1 Ozeki at the time. Then in 2018 was the next one, and that was just Takayasu and Goeido. So okay, 1959 to 2018. But then the very next year, we had a no Ozeki tournament when there were 4 Ozeki. Takakeisho, Tochinoshin, Goeido, and Takayasu, who actually got his Kachikoshi, his hashtag 8 and out, before he went Kyujo. And one other point I want to make before we leave this cool graph. John Gunny, of course, mentioned how Kaio, Chio Taikai, and Tochi Izuma were winning all these championships. Well, let's take a look at the graph. The last time Yokozuna had missed as many tournaments as they are missing now was back in around 2002-2003. So we had a lot of Yokozuna missing tournaments, and guess what? A bunch of Ozeki started winning tournaments, including the awesome 3 he was mentioning, and also Asashoryu. Asashoryu was, of course, finishing up his Ozeki/Yokozuna run, which took like 5 basho. In fact, it has been very fun to plot this chart going through all the recent Yokozuna since Akebono. Generally, when we see these big dives in Yokozuna attendance, you can be sure there will be a new Yokozuna coming soon. Well, within maybe a year or 2. One of the things we have not had recently was a lot of Ozeki who don't miss tournaments. Now hopefully Asanoyama and Shode can start breaking that trend, because Ozeki who don't get hurt a lot become Yokozuna at about 5 to 10 times greater rate than Ozeki who do get hurt a lot. Since 1958 there have been 32 Yokozuna, 22 of them missed 0 tournaments at Ozeki. And of those 32 Yokozuna, only 2 of them missed more than 2 basho at Ozeki. So perhaps one of the reasons we haven't seen a lot of dominant Ozeki performances is because we haven't really seen a lot of pre-Yokozuna type performances from any of the people who have been Ozeki. We're sort of in a weird Princess Bride-esque sort of triangle where we have to go through and figure out, are any of the current Ozeki going to be able to make the next jump by getting 2 straight Yusho or 13 wins in 2 consecutive tournaments to be able to bump up to Yokozuna. Now, like the Princess Bride and Nasima Fizini, I clearly cannot choose the Ozeki in front of you, but you clearly cannot choose the Ozeki in front of me, and because there are 3 of them, there's a 3rd person. Maybe John Gunning. First of all, Takakeisho. Number 1 thing he's got going for him, time is on his side. He's still the youngest of the Ozeki. He made Ozeki very young, which means he has bigger possibilities to possibly make Yokozuna. But As I mentioned before, he has only completed 4 tournament at Ozeki and gone Kyujo for 3. So, historically speaking, that amount of Kyujo does not put him on the fast track to Yokozuna status. Also, there's Takakeisho's body. He doesn't really have long arms or long limbs, so he has to work with what he has. This sort of body type makes him great for fighting really tall and lanky wrestlers because he can get under them and inside their defenses. People like Tochinoshin and Terunofuji. Harder to get around and pick up a little guy who's constantly coming in to your defenses. But people who are roughly his height and can approach him at Mawashi level, like Mitake Yumi, seem to be doing very well against this body type. Bye, Takakeisho! So let's look at our second longest serving Ozeki, Asanoyama. Got a lot going for him. 6 consecutive 10-plus win basho going. That's a great streak to have if you're looking to make Yokozuna. He's never gone Kyujo, another amazing thing. And he's under the age of 27, which is another great sign that he might make Yokozuna. Some bad signs! Asanoyama has never won 13 wins. He's never won a Yusho in the Sanyaku or even in the Joy. He was at Megashira 8 at the tournament he won, and debatably he got some help from the Gyoji winning one of his toughest matches there. Alright, I guess I brought it up. Quick sidebar. Okay, so this was May of last year. We had 3 wrestlers coming down the stretch fighting for the Yusho. It was Asanoyama, the young Megashira, Tochinoshin, the then Sekiwake, trying to fight his way back up to Ozeki, and of course, everyone's favorite middle child energy Yokozuna, Kakuryu. So as they were coming down the stretch, Asanoyama the Megashira faced off against Tochinoshin, who was also, like I said before, Sekiwake, trying to get his 10 wins to go back up to Ozeki. And then this happened. It's a very controversial decision, where eventually the Gyoji was overruled, stating that Tochinoshin had won, and one of the ring judges, the Shimpan, had decided that his heel had touched, but not everyone could decide on it. Very controversial. So, Tochinoshin, who needed his 10th win, ended up reacting this way. So, Tochinoshin ended up getting his 10th win. Kakuryu ended up getting removed from contention on the day Asanoyama won his 12th win. He ended up clinching the tournament on day 14. So yes, if we look at that tournament, Asanoyama was really not promoted that aggressively down the stretch, and when he did, he needed a little bump from the Gyoji. Quick sidebar. Now, for Asanoyama, so much of the math may work, but for some reason, even with the absence of a lot of Yokozuna over the past year, he has not been able to get over the hump. So, Shodai has been able to manage to change his sort of worldview and his level of intensity. Perhaps Asanoyama is due for something else in the near future. And then we get to our most recent Ozeki, Boss Man Shodai. Now, the only downside to Shodai right now seems to be that he's going to turn 29 right before the next basho. 29 is pretty old to be making a Yokozuna run. Not unheard of, but pretty old. And as we've said recently on the show, the average age of retirement for a Yokozuna is about 30-31, and he's already pushing up against that. But that being said, he's had the best year of any sumo wrestler. Think about that. This has been the year of Shodai so far. So in Shodai, I see a big, strong, injury-free body that has been doing the best sumo of its life for a year, and right now, no Yokozuna really sticking around to keep everyone else honest. So could Shodai be our next Yokozuna? I've already gone on record as saying, much like the Princess Bride, I cannot choose any of the Ozeki in front of me, and my dark horse candidate for the next Yokozuna, Kota Shoho. He, in my mind, is going to be the next hashtag new Shodai, not the way I meant last episode, but he will be the new Shodai in the way he is sort of an awkward wrestler with a very good sumo body who figures out how to use it and then becomes dominant. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We are going to have, of course, our bolder predictions before the next basho, and hopefully, time permitting, the long-awaited Tamano Umi epic. So everyone, stay strong, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.